Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to continue our three-part deep dive into Celtic's Champions League opponents this season. We looked at Lazio the other day. Today it's the turn of Atletico Madrid. All of that and a little bit of news on the contract front for Celtic. If you haven't already, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. It would be much appreciated. Fantastic support. We're nearly at 41k already when we only hit 40 like last week. So nuts. Thank you all so much. I know I mentioned the giveaway on the channel the other day as well. I'm having a bit of bother with the program that I would normally use to do a giveaway. So as soon as I get that fixed, it will be announced both on here and on Twitter. So just keep your eyes peeled and hopefully that'll be announced ASAP. So sorry about that. Now, before we get into our deep dive on Atletico Madrid today, let's talk about some good news that was broke over the past couple of days in regards to a new contract that's set to be offered to one of our key players here at Celtic. Of course, we've had a very good summer when it comes to contracts. Kyogo, Dyson Maeda, Liel Abada, Callum McGregor and more have all penned new deals at the club, and Celtic are set to continue that trend by offering one to none other than Matt O'Reilly. So Sky Sports' Anthony Joseph posted this on Twitter yesterday. Said Celtic are expected to offer midfielder Matt O'Reilly improved terms and an extension on his contract. The 22-year-old was the subject of a £10 million bid from Leeds United. Celtic rejected it and now hope to tie him up on a new deal during this international break. So some very welcome news. Matt O'Reilly, someone who started the season very brightly for Brendan Rodgers, someone who's going to be a big part in the football that we play under Brendan Rodgers, and Celtic doing everything in their power to ensure they keep him around at the club a little bit longer. With his contract set to expire in 2026, there's no great rush to get one signed. However, we did hear those rumours on deadline day that Leeds and Southampton were both looking at Matt O'Reilly, and I had no doubt in my mind that he was staying at Celtic. There was no chance he was going to leave us playing in the Champions League to go to the Championship, when he's much better than that. He could be playing in the Premier League. He's that good. There was no chance he was going to take that. However, you do see these clubs now circling. I think if he just continues to play better, then this time next year it could be bigger and better than Leeds and Southampton. So it's good to tie him down to a deal that's a little bit longer. It means we can extract as much value as possible. Matt O'Reilly's in a very unique position where, even though he's a Danish international, he is English born and bred, really. And he's got that kind of factor to him, the fact he's a registered English player down there. You know, he was trained in England and brought up in England. That means a lot for their criterias. And you know what the English tax is like. You know, it adds millions onto a player. So Celtic should be considering that next season if teams come calling. You know, don't just take 15, 20 million and let them go. You know, let's try and rob folk. If they want an English player, if they want someone who meets that criteria, take every last penny you can. So that starts by getting a new contract. Hopefully we get some good news on that front very soon. But I'm delighted to see that about Matt O'Reilly. Anyway, it's time to do the deep dive. Part 2, Atletico Madrid. Yes, we spoke about Lazio the other day on the channel. If you haven't seen it, feel free to go back and watch it. But today we talk about arguably the toughest team in our Champions League group this season. So I'm going to pass you to Ryan from a few days ago and get ready to talk about the Spanish giants that are Atletico Madrid. It's over to Madrid we go to take on Atletico Madrid, who we haven't faced since 2011 in the Europa League. And of course, for the first time in Celtic's history, we will head to that brand new stadium, that gorgeous, gorgeous stadium, the Metropolitano, which seats 68,000 people in a game which is obviously, I would say anyway, the toughest in the group. Last season wasn't the greatest campaign for Atletico, and they will probably want to improve on that, especially when it comes to European football. They didn't even make it out of the groups last season. They went out in the group stages of the Champions League. They made it to the quarterfinals of the Copa del Rey and finished third in La Liga. They were 1 point behind Real Madrid, but once again, Barcelona, just like Napoli, runaway winners in La Liga last season. So yeah, they were looking to do better. Diego Simeone has taken on Celtic in the past, and he'll be looking to keep up a record, which is good for Atletico in that regard. If you're old enough to remember, Celtic have quite a story and quite a history with Atletico Madrid, one that isn't too favourable on either side. We don't really like each other, and you'll know that if you're one of the older supporters. It goes all the way back to the 70s. Our record against Atletico isn't that great. In the 1973-74 European Cup semi-finals, Atletico managed to get the better of Celtic. They knocked us out 2-0 on aggregate. Games are very famous, of course. If you were watching them or if you were there, you'll know why. That carried on into the 80s, where our luck once again wasn't too great against them in the Cup Winners' Cup. Atletico knocked us out in the first round. And then in 2011-12, the last time we took them on with Diego Simeone in charge, they once again got the upper hand on us in the group stages of the Europa League. So a history that isn't too great for Celtic against the Spanish side, and one that we need to look to improve on this year. I mean, what is there to say about Atletico that we don't already know? They're one of the big teams in world football. Everybody knows all about them and we know what to expect. Diego Simeone with a very style of football, one that is well known and one that is tricky to play against, especially if you're trying to chase results against them. The squad, well, where do you begin? Rodrigo de Paul, one of the best keepers in the world in Jan Oblak. Guys like Marcus Llorente, Antoine Griezmann, of course, is back there. They have stars all round it. They've got World Cup winners in the squad. And obviously led by a very talented man who's won the league a couple of times with Atletico. So, yeah, this stands out as the hardest game in the group. As for transfers this season, on the way out, they did lose a couple of big hitters. We've seen Yannick Carrasco, who's been there for a while, leave. He was coming to the end of his kind of shelf life at Atletico anyway. Renan Lodi, Jeffrey Kondogbia, two guys that have been there for a wee bit. They also moved on. Matheus Cunha went to Wolves. And on the way in, once again, just like Lazio, not a lot of big money spent, but the standout being that signing of Antoine Griezmann, someone who we all watched in admiration during the 2022 World Cup. He's looking to try and kind of go out with a bang after a rough few years with Barcelona. So, yeah, they've got a very good squad. And even though they've been kind of quiet on the transfer front this season, it's one that is going to be difficult to play against. As for their start to the domestic season, it hasn't been too bad. 3 games in, undefeated, 2 wins and a draw, which leaves them sitting 4th in La Liga right now. Their start to the season has been filled with goals because in their most recent game, they scored 7. They beat Rayo Vallecano 7-0, which, when you look at Diego Simeone's side and you think defensive football first and foremost, yeah, 7 goals. They still know how to score. The other 2 games they played, they managed to win, and the most difficult game they did draw with Real Betis in Seville. So they've started the season quite well. Hopefully they kind of hit some stumbles and roadblocks on the way to playing Celtic. Of course, Atletico is the side that we will play in the double header in this group, so back-to-back on match day 3 and match day 4. Before we take them on at Celtic Park in match day 3, they will play Celta Vigo, which, if you remember, is where Carl Starfelt went this summer, so hopefully Carl Starfelt maybe does us a favour. That will be played away from home for Atletico, and then before we take them on in Madrid, they play Las Palmas away from home. So not the most difficult games in the world for a side like Atletico Madrid, but in one of the top 2 divisions in world football, there's always room for slip-ups, and hopefully that will happen in those games. Expectations: don't get battered. I want this to be the group stage that we avoid any embarrassing scorelines. That would make me feel a bit better about ourselves. So I just hope we don't get battered. I'm not going to sit here and say that I expect us to win games against Atletico when they are one of the biggest and best sides in European football. But I would love to see us take a fight to them. And who knows, at Celtic Park, if the atmosphere is right and the luck is in the air, you never know. Now, a lot of people online have been really looking forward to this trip. Of course, the brand new stadium, the capital of Spain, huge city, lots to do. People are really excited to head to Madrid and see us take on Atletico. So it's begged the question, what's the situation with away allocations, how many tickets we get in, where are Celtic fans situated? What's the whole deal with that? Well, there hasn't been anything put out officially yet by Atletico Madrid or Celtic to tell you the exact allocation. However, according to Champions League regulations, we are entitled to 5% of the stadium capacity, which means that at the Stadio, sorry, it's not Stadio Olimpico, we're heading to the Metropolitano. At the Metropolitano, Celtic are entitled to at least 3,391 tickets. So you're talking roughly 3,500 away tickets at the Metropolitano. Still very tough to get your hands on one. If you've been going for years and you've got the criteria, then great, sorted, you're in. But if you're not quite in with that yet, you might have to do some jumping around, some gymnastics, and find another way into the stadium, which isn't easy because it's a big reminder of how difficult it was last year at the Bernabeu. People already had the great idea of jumping onto the Atletico website when the general sale tickets went on yesterday, but they have blocked the sale of any tickets in the United Kingdom. You can't buy them unless I think you've got a VPN and an Amex account, an Amex card. So it's very difficult. But if you do somehow manage to find someone who can get you a hold of tickets in the home end, remember that Celtic fans will be situated in the Fonde Norte, which is the north stand of the stadium. On the map you'll see here, it's like sections 420-ish. I think that up the top tier of that side of the stadium, I think, is where the Celtic fans are going to be situated. So yeah, you want to probably try and find your tickets somewhere around there to be amongst Celtic supporters. Best of luck. On that note, I am incredibly looking forward to a wee trip to Madrid. I'm looking forward to taking them on at Celtic Park, and I'm looking forward to hopefully some Champions League upsets, because that's what you want. And that's what we need to work towards. So we'll wait and see what Diego Simeone and Atletico Madrid present us, and we'll see how Brendan Rodgers intends to tackle it. But there's part 2 of your Champions League deep dive. If you're wanting part 3, it will be up very soon as we explore Rotterdam and Feyenoord. But until then, make sure to hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.